viewers of The Pioneer, how are you doing? I hope you are healthy and well. As The Pioneer, we continue to keep the pulse of the Russia-Ukraine war. I would like to get into the subject without taking too much of your time. We also discussed it in our map report. The Russian army carried out an operation in Krynki recently. Even the Ukrainian flag was about to come down, but this was a trap because the Russian troops suddenly realized that they were being pulled onto the big trap. So what are the details of this event? Let's take a look at developments together. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so as not to miss our daily map reports and reports on the agenda that we prepare as the Pioneer team. Let's also mention it again. This video is not prepared with the artificial intelligence. Dear viewers, I'm a real person. I already responded to all of your comments regarding this matter, but I saw the, demand to say it again. Let's continue after this reminder. The Pioneer reports. Yes, we have it. As we mentioned, the Ukrainian army's Marines were recently subjected to an attack by the Russian army in the direction of Krynki. Here, Russian troops have not been able to capture Krynki for a long time. Ukrainian Marines managed to repel the Russian army each time with a contingent of about 300 people. According to the latest reports, the Russian army launched a secret offensive here. At the beginning, everything was going well, but what they did not know was that the Ukrainian army was prepared for this attack. According to reports, the Russian army mobilized late at night. They wanted to take advantage of the darkness of the night to take the Ukrainian Marines by surprise. According to some sources, the Ukrainian army had already learned about this operation through the intelligence units. Therefore, it was quite logical to lure the Russian army into the center of the trap. The Ukrainian Marines made their preparations. The Russian army advanced to the area first. However, they had to experience a realization here because, contrary to the expectations, there was no resistance. It was as if the Ukrainian troops had given the permission for the Russian army to enter. However, the Russian army did not realize the situation. This once again revealed the inexperience of the Russian commanders and the Russian soldiers. There was a Ukrainian flag erected by the Ukrainian troops. Russian troops managed to advance to this flag. However, the Ukrainian Marines had already prepared their ambush and were waiting for the Russian troops to fall into the trap. According to reports, attacks here was carried out by the 2nd Company of the 810th Brigade of the Russian Army. Russian troops were even preparing to plant the Russian flag in the area, but then the Ukrainian Marines appeared on the scene. The Russian troops were suddenly caught on the crossfire. The Russian flag fell. As a result of the intense pressure from the Ukrainian troops, the Russian army failed to make any gains in its important operation in the region. There is another very striking detail about the failed operation. It is claimed that when the Russian troops were ambushed in the region, they asked for help from a main headquarters. However, the Russian headquarters allegedly did not respond positively to the request of this trapped unit. In addition, the Russian army could not use its firepower. Air support also did not do any good because, according to reports, there was a disconnect between the Russian forces on the ground and the Russian Air Force. Therefore, the Russian army missed this important opportunity. There is also another interesting piece of information about the situation of the Russian troops here. According to the war sources, Russian troops in Dnieper River Delta islets are in a more difficult situation than ever because the aggravation weather conditions in the region limit the mobility of the Russian troops. In fact, according to the claims put forwarded by the sources, some of the Russian soldiers were stranded on the islands in the Dnieper River deltas, and traveling by boats became almost impossible. This unsuccessful operation of the Russian army has provoked many reactions. Russian sources are furious with the war leadership, especially during the Krynki attack. The failure of the Russian commanders to recognize the trap and the failure of the Russian soldiers has further increased the anger of the Russian sources. Another noteworthy anger is directed at the Russian intelligence. Russian intelligence's inability to obtain information about the potential of the Ukrainian army angers the Russian sources. The Russian army is experiencing the worst situation in its history. Another remarkable event is related to the alcohol crisis in the Russian army. As we shared with you in many times in our previous reports, the extent of the alcohol crisis in the Russian army is increasing day by day. Russian soldiers who cannot fight with the psychology of war are trying to satisfy themselves with alcohol. Of course, this situation has many different repercussions. In recent days, a very striking detail about the alcohol crisis in the Russian army has emerged. According to reports, former prisoners who were recruited as soldiers with the controversial decision of the Vladimir Putin, president of the Russian Federation, have recently started a major revolt. Ex-convict soldiers recently captured a large number of drunken Russian commanders. Then they clashed with other troops. According to reports, ex-convict soldiers who captured drunken Russian commanders were created to be assigned to the front line in recent weeks. However, these soldiers were beaten by Russian commanders before reaching their duty areas. This is the claim of the Russian soldiers. According to these allegations, 3 drunken commanders came to the area where the Russian soldiers were located. They tied the Russian soldiers without any reason, and then they started beating them. Russian soldiers shared the developments related to this issue with a video on Telegram. According to their claims, after the Russian soldiers captured the Russian commanders here, other Russian soldiers started to shooting at them. Russian soldiers who captured drunken commanders used the following statements in the video shared an allegation related to this incident. "They beat us. There was no reason. When they came to us, we thought that they were going to give us an order, so we didn't respond at first. They tied us up, then they started beating us with hoses. They did this only for pleasure. They had no other reason. Some of our friends saved us. Then we captured the commanders. Then other soldiers started shooting at us. They are trying to shoot us with machine guns. They are still shooting. They want to reach us." Another striking detail about the subject is that the soldiers cannot be reached at the moment. According to many Russian sources, Russian soldiers also sent this video to their families and friends. However, no one could reach these soldiers afterwards. There is no information about what happened to these soldiers. There are quite remarkable allegations about the fate of these soldiers. According to the allegations, Russian soldiers were probably captured by other Russian soldiers during this break. According to the allegations, Russian soldiers were probably captured by other Russian soldiers during the escape. Many of them had already been destroyed when the fire was opened. Those who were captured were immediately destroyed on the spot. According to some sources, Russian soldiers were captured and sent to an unknown area. However, we don't think that the results will change here either. Probably the captured Russian soldiers were destroyed by the Russian execution teams. Now tell me, what do you think? Where do you think the Ukrainian army got the information about the attacks of the Russian army? Do you think there is an intelligence weakness in the Russian army? And how do you assess the developments regarding the drunken Russian commanders? Do you think the risk of internal conflict in the Russian army may be higher than before? Let me know in the comments. You know that I read and I care about all your comments.